We are excited. We have a workshop today. And I actually have some pretty corny quotes, and I hope the co-chair doesn't mind. I put something together because we have Generate today, which is all about energy savings. So what I said today, and good morning everybody, is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with taking the first step. Okay, we know that. And then I had the district-wide energy savings from Generate begins with the first light bulb. So anyway, I just, it's so corny, but sometimes we just need corny light stuff. And that's all I can say about that. Well, thank you. I got a compliment from Dr. Hahn. I think I heard the word clever. Whoa. All right. So this is going to be a positive workshop, and but very important because we have a lot of learning to do. And I do know that Member Vaughn is on Teams, and Member Snively, are you there yet? Let's see if we can get, not yet. Member Vaughn, can you hear us? So we're going to go ahead and wait for her to tune in. Meanwhile, I did want to have some show and tell, and I want Member Snively to see this. We had a master board powwow, and we came up with some really neat things, and I just wanted to share what we came up with the board members. This is really, I get no credit for this because Lori Powell put it together, but I think when you go to your dais today, or dais, it's actually pronounced two different ways, our moral imperative that we agreed on was we believe all children can be empowered to learn to succeed. So it's real important that every one of us put the children first, which this board does, and our superintendent and our wonderful staff. So this will be on your dais, a little card. We can maybe pass that around. Yeah. So the other one, again, this is great artwork. We came together on 2 weeks ago or last week, and we talked about our vision as a board, as a district, with Superintendent Davis, and we had a value statement. And Member Snively gets the credit, but she put together an acronym called TEACH, and the T is for teamwork, the E is for equity, the A is for accountability, and C for compassion, and H, honesty. And I hope the board is unanimous with this, but I did want to pass it around. And this reflects on page 6 the absolute values that were put forth on our strategic plan. So, and again, we're going to have a show and tell, and we'll pass this around. And board members, should you have any individual comments, you can share it with me or Member Snively, who is not here now, but we'll get to her soon. So, Pablo, did Member Snively tune in yet? And Member Vaughn? Is that a negative? Okay, so she missed my quotes. Phooey. Okay, all right. Today we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk about, Superintendent Davis is going to make introductions. We're going to go into first the boundary discussion by Mr. Farkas and Amber Dickerson, and then we're going to have our questions, our Q&A break, and then we're going to go to Generate, which is all about district-wide energy savings. Good morning. And I'm sure that they're going to give a little bit of history and the ongoing, what's going on in our district with energy savings and where we're going from there. And I know Chris Farkas will be sharing that. Board comments will follow. We may get out a little bit early. We do have a board meeting tonight, and we do have a football game tonight.
That's
right.
So
the pressure is on for me to be timely. So I'm going to shut up right now and give this introduction. Superintendent Davis, by the way, you had an evaluation, and we read about it, so it looked to be very favorable. We wanted to express our appreciation for your leadership.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you to the chair. Thank you so very much. And, today I was going to take some time to thank each of the board members for their opportunities to give me feedback and how to excel and improve my work. I do believe it's, for the majority, it really aligns what each of you have already articulated to me, and I'm thankful. So know that. I look forward to growing our relationship. I look forward to working on collaboration for input, insight with each of you and also our team members within our community. Also trying to find proactive solutions of how to engage our community on a consistent basis, which is, with COVID, we know it's been difficult, but we need to be able to be creative and make that a reality so we can increase transparency and trust. And then really make certain that we're very clear on our continued decisions and continue to keep children in the forefront. So I'm really excited about using that as a foundation, the baseline as we move forward. And thank you for your honesty and your integrity in this process. And it was very appreciative, and I look forward to having more conversations one-on-one. But today is about Collins pre-K attendance boundary. We always want to make certain the board and the community is part of the thinking process related to how we expand and what we will need related to boundary potential changes. We do see particular areas in our school district that really continue to need additional student stations due to the influx of students moving in a particular area. As it relates to Barrington, Rogers, Randall, and looking at Collins, definitely there's a need, along with South County and many other places within our community. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris and Amber, who continue to be in the forefront of this and be think partners in order to present and get any feedback so we can make certain that we're on the right track to be able to serve our children every day in Hillsborough County. So thank you.
Thank you. Hold on just a second, Chris. Just as a moment of housekeeping, Mr. Farkas, 9:30 to 9:45, and then we have board comments. We have a little bit of a time, situation. We certainly want to add also to the generate in our board comments during that. So if you could just be mindful of your slide time, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am, we sure will. And we appreciate the opportunity, Superintendent Davis and board, to talk about the Collins boundary. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Dickerson and her team in growth management and planning to go over some of the specifics, but a couple caveats I want to put out there. First one is the main idea behind this in Collins is, at Collins Elementary School right now, when they leave Collins in 5th grade and 6th grade, they go to 3 different middle schools. This opportunity will bring all 3 of those middle schools, and they'll all go to the same school, pre-K through 8. So it's a great opportunity there. We're going to go through the slides before Ms. Gray had that part of my comments. We're going to go them somewhat quickly because many of you know this. We've been through this process before. We've been through this. Some of you are new to this, but in the slides we talk about how we go out, how we do the internal stakeholder meetings, how we go out with the community. So we will go over them somewhat quickly, but we don't want to confuse that with A, not being important to us, or B, if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer those. We just want to make sure we go through the process so everyone understands it. And then the last part of it is, this is one of our first opportunities in our new partnership with the county. We have had a renewed interest in trying to reinvigorate our partnership with the county. The county has a dual source here. So there will be a county property there. There'll be a county community center when we get done building this. This is the first time we've really done that in a long time with Hillsborough County. So we're excited about that opportunity. We won't talk a ton about that because we're still working out the details, but the final site will have a county after-school area there as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Dickerson, who's put in a ton of work. I can't explain to you all how complicated it is to go through the minute details of putting together land exchanges and the building process and how we get those agreements, and her and her team have done a wonderful job. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber. Amber?
Thank you, and thanks for providing me an opportunity to present to you today. So again, we're going to go as fast as humanly possible, but Chris set us up nicely. So Amber Dickerson with Growth Management. So our boundary process recently changed with our informal procedures that we adopted last year. So actually this is the first workshop of this kind that we've ever done. So before we go out to the community, the school board members agreed that it was probably a good idea to first get the concept presented to them before we go out to the community, gather community input. Then we'll come back to you all for the formal adoption, and that takes 2 hearings. So in the interim, after we gather feedback, we may make some adjustments to the boundary changes and bring them back. So why are we here? Again, we're doing an addition at Collins Elementary School to expand it to a pre-K 8. We're adding almost 600 student stations, and that's planned to open August 2023. So for a middle school boundary change, this is the earliest in time that we've ever adopted one. So that presents some unique challenges for data and making sure that we project correctly, but basically, these are the data points that we look at. So for some of you that are newer to the process, we just want to touch on a few of these. So we use the standard 40-day count. That's in our interlocal, and that's the basis for a lot of the concurrency system and data points, but that 40th day hasn't happened yet. So all of these numbers that you are seeing today are from last year's 40th day. So we know that those may be lower at certain schools. So once that 40th day comes out, we'll update all the data for that 40th day and make sure that we're not over-prescribing any schools. Also, future development reservations. So our department tracks every preliminary plat, rezoning, comprehensive plan amendment in the entire county so that we can have a feel of what is going to be projected for future students. So each year during the 5-year plan process, which we're in the middle of, we look at each of the developments and say how much of this development has built. And then we basically take those reservations off the books because if a child has moved into that home, they should already be in our count. So that prevents us from double counting. So another issue that is one of the major assumptions that makes the process a little difficult is the stay rate. So that is the amount of kids that are assigned within the boundary. Of those, what is the percentage that actually attends the school? That varies throughout the district. So certain schools have maybe 50%, others are super popular and they have 90% of the kids assigned to go. So we factor all of these elements in. Again, this is very early stage. This may look completely different by the time we adopt it, depending on the public outreach.
And real quick, and a perfect example of that is Sumner. They were pulling from East Bay and from Leonard High School. East Bay has got a 60+% popularity rate. Leonard has a 70+ popularity rate. We haven't done the final figures on 40th day, which again is prescribed by ILA. That's not just a random choice. We anticipate Sumner being in the 80 or 90% popularity rate, which is why it's so there. So we can take what the state rates are for local high schools and try to average that out, but a new school sometimes is more popular. And right now, Sumner is one of those schools that everybody wants to go to in the southern part of the county. So we can make as many predictions as we want, but until that first day and kids show up, there's always a challenge there. So that's one of the things that, to Amber's point, that's always an enigma that we have to kind of wait until that first day to go through. But we do look at trend analysis and look at other high schools in that area to see what those rates are. But Sumner's a great example of everybody wants to go to school there. And that's a positive thing for us, but it runs into a challenge from a seat station.
Yes. And then we did hold an internal stakeholders meeting, and then we actually did some adjustments after that meeting. So I had an additional meeting yesterday with all of the principals and invited everyone just to get filled in. And along the process, we include the principals and basically any department that wants to participate. We send them out the internal stakeholders. We try to keep everyone in the loop that the boundary changes are occurring. And again, we're adopting very early in the process. So by the time the school opens, everyone should be aware of who's assigned there. So out of the stakeholders meeting, there were a few concerns. One of the main concerns was the overcrowding at Shields. This boundary, again, is really driven by the addition at Collins, but there is obviously an elephant in the room, which is the overcrowding issue at Shields. And that has been on our radar for quite some time. We attempted to get a middle school site cited through the county's approval process on Bishop Road, and that was denied. So we really pivoted towards doing an addition at Collins and opening Waterset to try to get as many middle school seats as we can with the sites we already have. At the same time, we're working with the county to get entitled a 100-acre property with an elementary, middle, and high school. So we're working to solve this problem, but this boundary change will not solve the Shields problem. But that was one of the major concerns. Also, the ESE rooms in the Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses, we're working through that so we don't over-project Eisenhower's fish capacity because of the ESC use. So we dug into that a little bit, and we're comfortable with the numbers that we are showing today. And then, so the group wanted us to come up with a more aggressive scenario, so we're going to be showing you two scenarios. So basically, I know this is a ton of data, and focus on the 2 red columns. So the first one on the left is the current utilization at each school. Mind you, this does not include modular capacity, because we want what is the brick and mortar capacity. So hopefully eventually we won't need modulars, but in this huge growth period, we're going to have modulars to fill the gap for construction. So you can see Barrington's at 93, Shields is at 108. There's an obvious problem with Shields. And then the red numbers to the right include that growth that we're tracking. So all of the new developments, we get new developments in daily from the county. This is a hot area and it is not slowing down. So we review those on a daily basis so that those numbers are going to continue to change through our adoption process. But you can see if we do nothing, Shields could be at 172%. That's including their stay rate as well, which is only 57% of the kids assigned to Shields attend Shields. A lot of the students in that boundary attend charter schools or other district choice options. So this again, I apologize for the busyness of the slide, but I'm trying to get all the data into one. So the stars represent the schools' locations that we're proposing to change. And then pods 1, 2, and 3, the blue, green, and pink, those represent Collins' current elementary school boundary. So ideally it worked out that we could use the elementary boundary for the K-8 boundary. So currently, Collins students within that boundary feed into Rogers, Barrington, and Eisenhower. So we're proposing to move about 48 assigned and enrolled kids from Rogers to Collins, then 258 from Barrington to Collins, and then 79 from Eisenhower to Collins. So that is really the main driver of this change. However, we decided to identify a potential pod for movement to help download Shields. The issue with this is that stay rate. So if you look at pod 4, that's the Belmont area. So that's actually the Belmont Elementary boundary. But if you look, 382 students are assigned in that pod and only 51 actually go to Shields. Around 50 to 60 go to Sumner, to the middle school at Sumner. So we tried to get them out of Shields on purpose because we knew that this issue was happening. And then also a lot go to district charters or district choice schools. So it's not going to be a huge download for Shields, but what it may get the district is those students that may not want to attend Shields, since they're a bit closer to Eisenhower possibly, they may want to go to Eisenhower. Actually, they're about in the center. But so we can't really predict which students will attend. But what does this do to the overall picture? So again, the green is the current utilization. That's where they are today. The blue is all the shifting. And then the red represents what we would get within the 3-year period. So the developments we review are expected to develop between 1 and 3 years. Again, we're getting new ones every day though. So these numbers are continuing to go up and up. So, but if you see Barrington will be alleviated for time being. Again, Barrington's boundary is very large. So hopefully when we get that new middle school in, we can shorten up their boundary so that they don't have all of that developable acreage in their boundary. And then Rogers would be at 101, Eisenhower would be around 110, Shields 131, again, not solving that issue, but helping that issue, and then Collins at 103. And that's using Collins' stay rate now. Collins could become more popular as well, but also I don't believe Collins has been limited through choice. So that's something that we could do if it does become an issue. So that's scenario A in a nutshell. Let's see if we can.
And as we go to scenario B, One of the things we talked about is shields. It's obviously a huge issue for us and trying to get that. We had an internal stakeholder meeting, which we'll be coming back to the board for more information on that, but I think it's imperative to talk to you guys about we're looking at other solutions and non-traditional solutions of keeping sixth graders at local elementary schools, things like that to look at. We met with principals, met with the regional superintendents, HR, and all the support groups to talk about what that looks like, because we need to look at non-traditional solutions to fix shields. It's just that simple. So we look forward to probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks coming back to the board and talking about a shield solution to try to download that. And we have some really good ideas. Ms. Fisher, the principal at Shields, was very excited about that opportunity. So we look forward to kind of coming back and trying to solve that. It's a non-traditional problem. Both Shields and Sumner are two of our biggest schools as far as capacity in our entire district right now.
And to Chris's point, when you look at the K-6 model across the state and across the nation, those are allowing us to keep students in our elementary schools that may not have that trust in a middle school. And that model truly works to be able to have that consistency and that continuity with our learners. So this may be an option to some of those schools, and because Shields is sitting over 1,800 students right now, and that is it's a large number of students to be able to serve at a middle school. So we want to be able to alleviate as much and often as we can. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so moving on to scenario B. So pods 1 through 4 were not modified, but we added some additional changes. So this pod 5 is along Kingsway Avenue. This area has always been kind of odd because you can see where Rogers is located, and it's this northern arm that's kind of grabbing students. Out of here, there are 350 assigned students and 168 that are actually enrolled in Rogers. So we're proposing to move that from Rogers to McLean. And then pod 6 is a large swath that we plan to, or there's an option to take from Shields to Eisenhower. So right now it's in Shields boundary going here. It'd be reassigned to Eisenhower. And then pod 7, because we don't want to overfill Eisenhower, kind of that domino effect that we've had to do in the past, is basically take a pod from Eisenhower, then to Rogers. And this is just a kind of odd access area anyway. And I feel like parents would more likely probably want to go to Rogers than Eisenhower. So out of that, it's 430 assigned students, 222 that are actually enrolled out of that. So what does this do to the overall situation? So the green column represents, again, current, all the shifting in blue, and then what is going to happen. So Barrington, not impacted at all, because that's their A scenario too. It's the same in each. But Rogers, 104, Eisenhower, 104. McLean gets a little pop because McLean is at 61% utilization right now. Shields would be more alleviated. Again, it's not a fix, but this coupled with the capacity in modulars would be a much better situation than it is today. And then I have a comparison slide as well so that you can just see both of the scenarios against each other.
That's what you think. One of the things we're going to talk about, and you'll see too, that the scenario B is a more aggressive scenario that we have. That I want to remind you that we do have an RFP that is on the streets. It's going out for district-wide boundary. That'll be part of it. Scenario A is a necessity because we have to assign kids to the new K-8. Scenario B is a more aggressive stance, but we have, as a board, we have options. When we talk about next steps, we can easily bring both of those options out. We prefer to bring one option out to the parents, but if we could bring both options to the parents too, and for those of you that are new board members, we have community meetings. We allow them to, we document all the questions that are there. We allow forms. We allow emails. We have a dedicated email and phone line where we take those, and then we summarize all those statements. So you'll see how many people made comments, what they said, what their challenges were, what their desires were for the rebounding, and we bring that to the board, make sure we meet with you. And make sure you all have the same information about what the community is saying. And Amber alluded to it, but of the boundary shifts we've done in the last 5 years, literally every single one of them has had an adjustment based on parents' feedback. Every single one. So we do take those seriously. And obviously, the positive of boundary changes, people want to stay at the school they're at. That's a great thing. You don't want people to want to leave their schools. That's always the challenge. The negative is people want to stay at their school. We've got to make some changes with growth. So we look forward to the opportunity to meet with the community. That's obviously a huge next step. This is just the initial conversation.
Okay, so a pro of scenario A, again, we have to do something to be able to open the new edition. It moves fewer students, less pushback because students are already there. They're just moving up through the middle school grades. However, it doesn't really assist Shields really at all on the downloading front. But scenario B will assist Shields a little more. It will assist Rogers with kind of that community to the north, which is really not connected so much to the school. So that could be kind of a reason why maybe they're not attending. And then moves more students though. So 2,101 assigned. So you're going to get a lot more parent feedback in scenario B. Additionally, as we know historically, it's not very popular to go from a B school to a C school. So that is a major challenge of scenario B. So with the whole scenario A versus scenario B, when we bring it back to you, you will also be adopting implementation strategies. So this outlines how we're going to roll out this new edition. So historically we've said, you know, 8th graders, you stay at your school, you're grandfathered, but everyone else is reassigned. Obviously, with this scenario, we want to download those middle schools as soon as possible. So I'm recommending that we require 6th graders, who are right now 4th graders, so they get a lot of notice, 6th graders to remain on the Collins campus, then offer a choice hardship option. We'll physically reassign 7th and 8th, but offer them a choice option in case they want to remain at their school. And I recommend that because if you think about it, you just arrived to middle school, now you have to go back to elementary, and then you'll go to high school in a couple years. So that would be really challenging, I think, for those students. And then we have our normal kind of set things that we don't allow sibling preference if the sibling's not assigned. And again, we'll bring all of this back, but this way you can see, though, what current students are impacted. So really it's impacting the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders today for the future, because then we're going to have a gap year, and then the effective year is going to be August 2023.
So the next part we're going to talk about is a communication plan. We're wrapping up right now, and we'll hand it over to you guys for comment. So this is the end of our part of the presentation, but this is a formalized process. It is important that we get feedback from the community, and we get it through a variety of ways. We get it through the open community meetings, we get it through email, we also get it through a dedicated phone line where we will document that and make sure the entire board has it. The other thing that we're going to talk a little bit about is we advertise that newspaper, do parts of that, is equity. Equity is obviously the cornerstone and one of the most important things that we talk about in growth management. We will have data analysis for every school scenario, meaning that we go with Nicole Binder in assessment, we talk about what school grade and simulate school grade based on that. We look at what the free and reduced lunch rate and what that looks like. We look at ethnicities and see what the scenarios look like before and after school so that we can prepare and adequately provide the support. Monica Veratarato and Kim Bays will be part of those conversations to ensure that we've got the support for those kids in transition, because it is a change, and when it's a change. Now, I will say this, that many of the scenarios we've talked about will not have a dramatic impact on both ethnicity or free and reduced lunch rate to any of the schools involved. Collins, those kids are already at PK through 5. They would stay in that school, so it would be a much less challenging transition for them. In fact, they're already in there with those same kids, same neighborhood, so it shouldn't be as big a challenge.
Okay, and this is just a general timeline. Once we have the new 40th day data, crunch all those numbers, see if we're overfilling any of the schools, then we'll do the public outreach portion. And basically, you'll see this come back to you December or January, depending on how much impact we get from the parent outreach. So that is my presentation. Again, as Chris alluded to, we need direction from you all, whether to go with just scenario A, just scenario B, or bring 2 scenarios out to the public. I will say 2 scenarios tends to cause some confusion with the public, so my preference would be 1 scenario, but again, we have done 2 in the past, and we can do that if that's the pleasure of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson. And was there from Mr. Farkas, Ms. Dickerson, a recommendation that you may want to share with the board before we get started? because you authored, there was a recommendation.
And I'll defer to the superintendent, but scenario A is the one that fits best for us from this standpoint. I mean, scenario B is more aggressive and solves the problem, and we do feel like we need to present that to the board. Is if it was just numbers and it wasn't about culture, or school, or grade, or anything like that, from a planning perspective, and Amber's a certified planner, scenario B would most assuredly be the way we go. But as we look at an RFP from a district standpoint, scenario A is obviously a required part of it, and I think that we can get feedback on that. And I don't think in all honesty, I don't think you'll get a lot of pushback from scenario A at all. Scenario B may have some other challenges that face with it, but we're at the will of the board, so I'll defer to the superintendent, but that's kind of where we sit.
Yes, sir. Through the chair, I would say that A and B have their own complexities. B has more because we'll be moving students and more students, over 22,000 students, and then you'd also transition to students that had variant in grades. So the same way that we had Barrington going to Rogers at that particular time, even though we know they're both really sophisticated, smart, good schools for children, it was a concern about the school grade. So this would be in the same particular because Rogers going to McLean. And we just got to beef up the resources that we wrap our arms around McLean where there's feel comfortability through that process. But A is the scenario that I would recommend at this particular time. But we would have to be able to look at, surrounding elementaries if we did A to make certain that we can offer and have student stations to be able to offer that K-6 mentality as much and often as we can.
Okay, thank you. Board members, we're certainly good for one round of questions and comments, so relax. I think 3 to 5 minutes to get these questions and answers in a timely way. And let's go ahead. Member Combs, are you ready? We can just go right around the room. No? Okay. Member Perez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to go with something the superintendent pointed out, which is great. When with the new middle school scenario B. Now I've attended, some of the parent community forums, and it's fantastic, to hear the feedback, be able to be in that room when that discussion is taking place. What is the potential of parents moving their children back to Hillsborough County Public Schools when a new middle school comes up from choice and from charter schools, because they feel, okay, now, there's a new middle school going up, and, they probably had their children in choice or in charter schools because of the overcrowding, and they sense a sense of relief in the schools. And now they're ready to put their students back into our schools. What is that potential? Have you, counted?
Well, yes. So we do have those specific pods. So we know exactly out of each scenario how many kids are going to different options. Now, usually we get a lot of that information from the parents themselves when we go to outreach. So I've even already received some emails from parents that are supportive, at least in the Panther Trace area, in the Collins area, of saying, yes, I want to be reassigned from Barrington to Collins and stay at Collins. And I have spoken to the principal, and she has stated she's only heard positive things from the parents. So I think that's the best gauge. Again, we'll have 2 meetings to gather all of that, and we'll bring that back to you.
I think it's very realistic to assume that the populated, it's a great question, because the populated will go up. You'll have more kids that didn't want to leave to go to a middle school or want to stay closer with a charter school. They're going to stay there. To Mr. Davis's point, there's familiarity with the school. So it's just a natural progression. They go from 5th to 6th grade in the same school. So I would anticipate those numbers go up to that. And then in year 2 or year 3, depending on how quickly the county and we work that out, there's also going to be an after-school program right there that is going to be right there. There's going to be a track. There's going to be an after-school county program there. So I feel like it's a very attractive thing for that neighborhood. So especially within that neighborhood, I expect the popularity rate and stay rate of Collins K-8, PK-8 to be higher than what it is currently right now with the other middle school. So it's a great question. We think the numbers will go up.
Right. That was the benefit of me attending those meetings, is I was able to receive that feedback from parents who had children in charter schools and, came back to our Hillsborough County Public Schools, something that I, as a board member, did not even think about. because of that the athletic programs, exactly what to your points, after school programs, the benefits of Hillsborough County Public Schools to their students as opposed to charter schools. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Perez. And board members, if you are inclined to say that you're favoring A or B, feel free to do that as well. We're going to back up because Member Combs is all warmed up. And Member Combs, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, thank you both very much for all the research and all the work that you've done. I mean, I believe I'm going to take your recommendation and the superintendent's recommendation, and also, Plan A seems like the best scenario for us. So I guess a couple questions that I have is, how many modulars do we have right now at Shields? What does that look like?
It is a little over 500 student stations at Shields, 484 to be exact. That is the capacity that we've added through modular student stations. I believe there's 24 total on site.
That's correct. And what we've talked about in talking to the principal at Shields is there needs to be more support. We're going to add an office portable out there. We're going to add a cafeteria portable out there so that they actually don't have to transition, and kind of keep that a little bit more self-contained, because that's the school's request. But we have almost 500 student stations at Shields right now that are out in the portables.
Okay, and I as a teacher who worked in modular many times, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily always negative. I know that's not the ultimate goal, and so hopefully we can continue to grow and purchase land. And so the other question that I have, as far as the K through 6. How do you imagine that's going to impact overall keeping our number of students? I mean, do you imagine that's going to I would imagine it's going to be very positive impact for us.
Most assuredly. Mr. Davis and I have had this conversation on multiple occasions. We think it's a huge benefit from that standpoint, because the students, and I'll use Mr. Davis's my favorite word, Mr. Davis, the comfortability of kids staying for 6th grade is huge, because they already have been there. They know 5th grade is there. They know the teachers there. They know the principal. So they're very much like, it's just the next step. There's not even a thought to move to charter in that part of it too. So I think it's a huge benefit. Mr. Davis, I know we've talked about it.
Yeah, we have, and through the chair, the biggest thing is that and I've done this in Duval and also my last day. Anytime that we see that there's been troubling with enrollment or keeping our students in middle schools, we've opened up the K-6 in both of those particular areas, and we just see that more students remain in the K-6, and they have there's a greater increase of students that transition that stay within our system. And I think it's a good strategy where we can be able to host it, and we want students to stay within their community as much and often as they can, and I think this is a strategy to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the innovation, because I do think that the K through 8s, I mean, really, we want to do grades, pre-K through 8th grade, or pre-K through 6th grade. I think we need to continue to say pre-K instead of just kindergarten. We really want to get our children at 3 years old and keep them as long as possible, because we know that's going to be the best thing for the children, as well as academic growth, as well as social, and just overall being able to maintain that consistency for children all throughout those years.
On the Early Childhood Task Force, whenever I just say kindergarten instead of PK, Ms. Brown throws something at me. So I will most assuredly keep trying to say PK8, because it is very important, and it's the way we plan it. We actually plan construction of rooms with those pre-K 3- and 4-year-old rooms, and it's a very important thing that Superintendent Davis and that Ms. Brown harp on in a positive way to make sure we do it. So we will continue.
Yes, and I think we should just continue always saying pre-K through 8th grade or pre-K through 6th grade, because that's the ultimate goal, is to get our children, because then we know one of the issues that we're challenged is that children aren't ready for school. And we know if they're coming into our schools, then they're going to be ready, because we can provide that consistency. But I appreciate all the hard work, and I will support both of your recommendations.
Thank you, Member Combs. I'm sorry, Member Perez. Did you have a preference? Was it Plan A or B? Because I'm kind of taking a score here.
Yeah, the superintendent's recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and next, Member Hahn, would you like to speak? Also, Member Hahn, Member Snively has a prior commitment, so she will not be able to join in today. Member Hahn?
Thank you. So appreciate all the work you put into the presentation today. And I know, we've had lots of conversations since I've been on the board, because a lot of this is impacting South County, which are my schools. So I will support scenario A, just to get that over with and get that out there. I also appreciate the non-traditional solutions you're looking at for Shields. And certainly with the changes to Collins to go from a K-5 to a pre-K-8, we will probably recapture a lot of the families that had originally chosen to move outside of our schools. But at the end of the day, you can move the numbers around and students around as much as you want and create as many scenarios. We are running out of seats, and we're running out of them really fast. And, you know, it will not have a significant impact at Shields at all, either scenario, right? At the end of the day, we need a new school. And I'm assuming we're still looking for a new site. As I've mentioned in the past, extremely disappointed that the Bishop Road site was not supported by the BOCC. You know, these are their constituents too. So it's really concerning that we're not seeing a healthier partnership around this and to find a solution for these students, because these families are all of our constituents. And that is really the only solution that's going to significantly change these numbers. Because, you know, you can add more modular units, but the problem that we see when you do that, though they're not as bad as they were years ago when we were in, you know, portables, right? And they were leaking. Now they're nice units. But it adds more stress to cafeterias, to hallways. It impacts discipline and behavior. You know, it requires, you know, it's just a heavier lift. So that can't be our solution, and I know you understand that. You know, I also have concerns with, we certainly can't control residential growth that we're seeing, but, you know, again, I have concerns about the cumulative effect that the decisions our city council and county commissioners are making around development, because they're approving those developments one-offs, like one at a time. So when we present a letter that says, this will not have capacity issues for our schools in that area, well, maybe if that one is only being built, but then in another couple of months they get another, you know, they're approving another development. And that's so the cumulative effect they're not aware of. And I know we've discussed, I'm not going to get into it now, a solution for that, but there is a solution to make them more aware of the impact of the decisions they're making on our schools. Because I think that's getting lost in the fact that, you know, they're approving developments one at a time and then not understanding the big picture. So we have to help educate them as well along the way, because we're kind of past the point of no return. So I really want us to find some long-term solutions for Shields while we're trying to find a spot to build a new middle school. Because I know Watershed is going up. That's not going to be the solution. Collins is not going to be the solution. And even looking at the proposed utilization with growth, with scenario A, all schools but Barrington are going to be over 100%.
That's right.
We're already behind the 8 ball again. We can't seem to get ahead of the curve. And so bottom line is, you know, I'll support scenario A, but we have got to build a new school, middle school in South County, for sure.
And I have to say, Dr. Hahn, sorry, to the chair, Dr. Hahn is completely correct. This is a long-term vision issue, and in what Dr. Hahn just said, Collins is a Band-Aid. And this is why Bishop Road is so important, and the other ones. And we've had some successes with the BOCC as of late, but this is still the biggest hurdle and barrier that we've had to find that geographical location that's really going to support Shields, because as Dr. Hahn said, UU's not going to be the solution. So it's already going to be, it'll be filled the first day you open it. So being able to find these locations, being able to have a additional, I guess, review of what we can use our internal dollars on for land use related to Bishop Road. I mean, we're working through the BCC of that. Chris or Amber, anything you want to talk about? What I know we purchased some land or in the process of maybe co-identifying properties for that. Just provide any updates to the board where we are.
Sure. So we have a 100-acre site that's south of Waimama Elementary, and we had submitted back in January for a pre-submittal meeting with the county. At that time, after that meeting, they gave us kind of a laundry list of transportation issues in that area. Then administration's changed, so we've been meeting regularly now. In 2 weeks, we will be submitting our formal plan development for that site, which will include a 3,400 capacity high school, about a 1,600 capacity middle school, and 1,000 capacity elementary school, which are needed, you're right, today. But we have been trying to have that dialogue with the BOCC, and about a year ago, we presented to them that this was going to be and is a crisis. And, so we've been making a little headway, but it's been very slow. But we're taking that next step to actually get something filed to move forward.
I appreciate that, and it just, we've been having the same conversation for 3 years now.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's becoming, very stressful for our community, and it's frustrating for us as a board, because it seems like every time we present a plan and we check all the boxes they want us to check, they throw another barrier up, and we have to go back to the drawing board. And there just is this feeling that there are these continual barriers being placed when, again, these are all of our constituents. And it's just, unfortunate that we can't seem to get any traction on getting approval. It should be something that we all have a shared interest in and finding a solution around. And just to continually have them kick this can down the road, it's really, unfathomable at this point that they continue to do that,
Yes, and we've been working with the superintendent and Mr. Farkas on legally attacking that as well, so that we do not end up in this same place. One issue would be to revise the interlocal agreement, which we're actually meeting with staff, county staff next week to start digging into that agreement to say, we need a list of what we need to do, very clear list of what's expected. We will deliver that, and then we expect a time frame of approval.
Right. You can't keep changing.
Absolutely. Can't move my cheese.
What keeps happening to us around this scenario. Yet, developers can build a 10,000, house home, area within 2 years, boom, from start to finish, and we're struggling with just a few schools. So I appreciate it. I know it's hard work, and I'm just really concerned for my families that are down in South County. And to Member Prez's point, I don't want us to lose any more families. And I think that's what also our other elected officials who are involved in this approval process need to understand, that every year we wait, we are shedding more families into the private sector, and we want to keep those families. So, we definitely need to keep looking for solutions in the meantime, which I appreciate. But, really, I just had comments more than questions today, because we've had ongoing conversations for years. So appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Member Hahn. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, ma'am. I don't mean to continue this same conversation, but it's really important. So the biggest thing we have with Bishop Road is that the county wants us to use our dollars to be able to help with infrastructure. We can only, through our opinion, I want to make certain I say this correctly.
It's not our opinion.
Okay.
It's the law.
Okay, that's right. I was going through there. I don't want to say it. You say it wrong.
So there's an ongoing dispute with the county about how we can use our dollars. It's been battled in court, and 2 judges have ruled that we can only use our funds for property improvements that abut our property. We cannot solve the county's transportation problems with our funds. So Dr. Hahn identified the solution, or the problem, very succinctly. The county approves development. We don't approve development. the county has not in the past been diligent about making sure the infrastructure was in place to support the development. We're stuck with the problem then. And so Mr. Farkas has been working very closely, as well as the superintendent, with the new administration at the county, and they're making tremendous headway. So progress is being made that was not being made for the last, since you've been, anyone here has been on the board. But we're not there yet. We're getting there. It will be better in the future. But that's something we cannot budge on. We cannot use our dollars that are meant for our schools and improvements to our schools to solve the county's transportation problems. That's just something that we cannot budge on.
Yes, he did say it very legally. Thanks, Mr. Porter. Yeah. All right. We're going to go ahead and carry on. We have a few more board members that would like to make a remark. Following that, we'll have a break, and then we'll get into Generate. Mr. Washington, Member Washington, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Chris and you and Alma, y'all did a great job. I tell you, boundary changes, boy, is really difficult because you in the years past, we divided up neighborhoods, and that made a difference. I really like the pre-K-8 concept where the kids will stay together, all the students will stay together. I think that's really neat. And also, I support the superintendent in scenario A because we want to make it as easy as possible when we're dealing with the public, especially with boundary changes. Because when you're talking about moving kids around, parents sometimes become, upset. And, where my kids going, how you get there. It's a lot of barriers. Something else too. And Chris, I know you're going to do this. I like to look at when we make boundary changes, the diversity. We have to really look at that because I think that's important. Because in the years past, it seemed as though we were moving certain kids in one school and not have them in other schools. So I think diversity is a big part when we are doing this. But as far as the plan really looks great, and I think we'll be successful. And I also have to, with Dr. Hahn, that area is growing very fast out there. I mean, unbelievable. People are moving out in that area. In the years past, they didn't have that many people out there. So we have to come up and not keep kicking the can down the road, as Dr. Hahn said. We got to come up with something so we can be able to accommodate those students. But it looks great, Chris, you and Alma. It looks great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Member Washington. Member of... Yes, and then there's that. And I actually asked Member Washington, where's the football? Because that would be a good icebreaker. Yeah, and we'll hang those socks up tonight. At any rate, Member Vaughn, and then I'll say a few things. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I just want to clarify that essentially we're saying the difference between scenario A and B, depending on the school, is a reduction in overcrowding in anywhere from 3 to 9%. Is that right?
Yes, and so there's yes is the easiest way to do that. There's a couple that are up and down, but about in that percentage, less than 10%.
Okay. And then, so the concerns with being more aggressive with Plan B, which sounds like it'd be a better solution in the long run because it gives us, like you said, upwards of 10% more capacity, is concerns about students who would be switching schools that have different letter grades and the community reaction. Is that correct?
That's a big part of it, and also the RFP that we have out for the whole boundary change. That we don't. One of the things we've made sure we didn't do is move kids twice in their same schooling, like move them twice during elementary school. And my concern is that it also is going to handcuff the number of schools we can affect with when they look at district-wide boundaries if we affect that many more schools. So those two things are probably the biggest part for us not moving, the feedback and grade change along with the possible RFP.
And then to Member Washington's point, is there a difference between equity and diversity in these two plans? I know you said as you move forward you would evaluate those, but as they stand, does one over the other create more equity or diversity within the school population?
Very little. Actually, the populations that we're moving from one school to the next are very similar in that. So both with free and reduced lunch status and with ethnicity, we see very little change for the schools in scenario A or scenario B.
Okay, and then the next question that I had was the concerns with presenting both options similar that you presented to the board to the public to get as much public feedback on this. Are you concerned that with multiple plans it becomes too confusing for the public?
It has historically been a bit confusing. However, we have gone out with 2 different scenarios before. But it does get a bit confusing when we receive our comments back, yes.
So I'm going to break away from the rest of the board, just in my consensus of I would prefer to bring as much information and as many choice to the public to get feedback. Even though it might be more confusing, I would like to give the public the benefit of the doubt and see where their concerns might be. I know I'm probably in the minority where that is concerned, but it might even lead to more productive conversations or concerns that we have when you talk about doing a district-wide boundary change. Getting that feedback between 2 different plans might give us more data when we look at doing something on a larger scale. So if I was just giving my preference, I would prefer to, as we do the community engagement and bring it to the public, allow them to kind of process both the options and get feedback on it. So that's where my choice preference would be, and that has all the that answers all the questions I have. And just like everyone else, I appreciate all the work that's put into this in the presentation to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn, and I'm just going to say, ask just a few questions, and then I believe Member Combs wants to make a remark. My question revolves around Shields. And I know Member Hahn is very apprised, and we all are. We've been working on Shields for at least since I've been in office, 2016, sitting at 2,200 students. 6th grade, I think I like the out-of-the-box thinking, Superintendent Davis, adding the 6th grade to the existing school that houses them. The questions that I have are the portables. When we talk about portables, and I actually taught one, right, and I think many of us are very familiar with portables. When we talk about Shields, which is tremendously, it's an equity issue. That school is an anchor for the migrant families and for the for the low-income families. They'll go there because that's where the transportation's easier, etc. That's how it's done, right? And thank you, Member Hahn, for recognizing that. Having said that, that will always be a very crowded school unless we remarkably change the structure of the grade levels. And so, are those portables new, or are they going to be used when we talk about portables being switched around? There's a big difference because the used ones at Shields are.
So we had used portables that we owned, and we put the next 16 portables out there. We actually rented those portables, which we rent. There's actually a return on investment of about 4.5 years. If we know they're going to be on a site more than 4.5 years, we buy them. The positive when we rent them is that they're responsible for repairs, whether it's AC, roof, anything else that goes with it. So to answer your question, about 5 or 6 of those are the older portables. The other 16 are the newer portables that are out there at Shields. The ones that we'd put on campus now would be the newer portables as well when we look at having an office area there so we can have administration close to those portables, and also having a cafeteria area so we can expand it and put basically it's like a triple wide portable that goes out there. They can have a cafeteria area that we work with them on. So those will be newer portables, but there still are about 5 or 6 of the older portables.
Okay, well, I'm very observant too on the conditions of some of those portables and our children going into those. But at any rate, that's a topic for another day, but I still want to make sure that's noted. Second, when you talk about Shields moving it to the 6th graders departing from Shields and going to the other schools, are we being very mindful that we're not taking the best of the best? So Shields, the principal, is concerned that she'll only have, with Waterset being there also, she'll have left only the lower scored children. And that's an equity issue. But we're switching around quite a bit, which we have to, right? We have to do that because we don't have the Bishop Road, etc. But are we being very careful? Please remark on that we're not robbing the best of the best and putting them in one new schools such as Waterset or Collins, et cetera?
Well, there's about 8 elementary. It's a great question. There's about 8 elementary schools that feed into Shields right now. We can't keep all the 6th graders at all those sites. For instance, Dobie sends 26 kids from Dobie to Shields. We couldn't keep those 26 kids there. They couldn't have enough courses to offer for those 6th grade kids there. So there will still be 6th graders at Shields. It will be a self-contained area in the back of the school, that portable area that we talked about. And Ms. Fisher spent a lot of time talking about that with Shay McCrae and with April. To talk about what that looks like. So we're still in the design stages of that, but to answer your question, no. In fact, some of the kids that will continue to go to Dobie, will continue to go to Shields, like Dobie, are from affluent areas. So it could quite possibly be the antithesis of that. It could be that some of our more affluent kids will actually still be assigned to Shields, and some of the other kids that are a little bit lower scoring there. But one of our focuses is providing support to the 6th graders regardless of where they are. So if they stay on that 5th grade, that pre-K through 5 campus, that we make sure those 6th graders have support so they can be successful at the school they're at. Because they're going to be at Shields for 7th grade, even if they stay on 6th grade campus. So we need to make sure we build them up and get them ready for 7th grade.
And Superintendent Davis, I just want that to be noted, and also with big time caution that we do not let that happen to any of the restructuring. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Through the chair, perfectly said. Anytime we do boundary changes, we always connect with our assessment department and Chris and Amber's shop to identify the individuals that would potentially be transitioning from one school to the next. We run all of their multi-year analytics from the state assessment, and along with their economic background, gender, race, all those elements to see what that makeup of the school will be, and being able to try to predict school grades, services, those, and what it would need to be able to have sufficient fluency at the school. All of that is considered so we can make informed decisions. One thing we don't want to do is hurt the celebrated rich diversity that we have in our schools every day. So it's always a part of our conversations.
Right, and we want all schools, urban core, Member Washington, we don't want schools to be the iconic low-performing schools. We have to start raising every school and not let it occur ever again. This is a whole new age here. We have to make sure we're keeping the higher standards in every school and raise them up. So the other question I have is the boundaries. When we change boundaries, are we being very careful? And this is a bigger question, but not putting all the low-performing schools together. Is that a cautionary note as well?
It is, and it's back to what Mr. Davis said. We run all those scenarios to ensure we're not doing that. But in reality, in this scenario A that we're talking about, literally all the kids that are already in pre-K through 5th grade will just continue to 6, 7, and 8. And Collins has been a high-performing A for multiple years, so we anticipate that continuing in the middle school.
Okay, and also the splitting of families, and I know this is a very important situation. Plan A does not occur, the splitting of families.
It's actually the opposite. So we have right now, we have one neighborhood, Panther Trace, and they go to 3 different middle schools. After this scenario, all 3 of those 3 will all come in. They'll all go to Collins for pre-K through 8.
Okay, and that's one reason too I'm putting A down. The BOCC, it's it's an overriding dark cloud. Shouldn't have to be this way. And lawsuits, the only people that win on that is the lawyers. Sorry about that, Mr. Porter, but we're at the loss. Can we? And Mr. Farkas, you're close, near and dear to the referendum monies. And when we started the referendum, and I hesitate to bring this up, but we also included, after 3 or 4 years after the delayed maintenance, we were looking at using the monies for additional schools in needed areas. Can you make a remark on that, and then I'm completed on my questions?
Certainly. Yes, we did anticipate using that funding, but the issue right now is not funding. We could build the high school, we could build the middle school, the elementary school right now. The issue is we haven't gotten approval to put the shovels in the ground. So we've done these additions, and Waterset is approved. But if they said that Westlake is approved when Amber goes to her meeting next week and says, yes, it's approved, which it takes longer. But in theory, if they said you can go, we've already selected our construction firm and our engineering firm and our architectural firm. We will be ready to go that day. The money is there to build the school. It's the space that we're missing. So we have monies to build schools. We do not have land, green space to put them in.
Well, what a difficult place to be. Okay, so we'll adjourn on that. Member Combs, you had another question.
Yeah, I have a question because I don't really have the historical knowledge as a new school board member, and my district is actually in the opposite end of Hillsborough County. So my question is, do you anticipate that 100 acres being approved for pre-K through 12th grade? If not, what's the plan to look at another piece of land? I mean, what's the timeline to look at this? Because and what can we do as a board? Is it, education? What can we do to ensure either that area works or looking at creating another piece of land that's going to be a pre-K through 12th grade site?
It's a wonderful question. And no, we don't openly talk about where we're looking for property because that automatically drives the price up. In fact, when we have brokers go out and look at land, they don't say they're representing Hillsborough County Public Schools. So we have 4 brokers that are currently looking for sites and have been for over I don't want to misspeak, Amber, 2 or 3 years. I mean, we've looked for property. Westlake is just the one that's done. We have other properties that we look through. We also meet with developers. Amber and her team meet with developers. Hey, we have a new neighborhood with 1,000 homes. Are you willing to dedicate land to us on that? So we're looking under every avenue. We talk about the ones once they're under contract because we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot from a cost standpoint. But most assuredly, we are searching for other properties on a regular basis. Amber and I meet and talk about that. But Amber, go ahead.
Yes, so the 100 acres we have under contract, part of the contract says that we'll have it entitled through the county, which we're working on doing right now. But also we have another site in a PD in South County that we're working to get under contract too. And as Chris said, I actually get leads all the time through our brokers. Whether it's going to work for a school site, super challenging. Because again, South County has a transportation infrastructure issue. So 95, if not 99% of the properties have that same issue. So that really makes it challenging.
I guess one of my biggest concerns is that, if we wait and if we continue to wait, then there's going to be all these charter schools that are popping up. And, and if for some reason a hurricane comes or we need shelter or something like that, the infrastructure of that area as a community, how it's going to impact it. So my concern is the longer we wait, the easier it is for, especially now with the new laws that are allowing charters to pop up anyway, that they can pop up and there is not a lot of oversight for those schools. So how does that impact long-term our community? How does that impact, jobs, profession, the education? So I definitely think that this has to be a priority. If that's not the land, and what can we do as a collective unit to make sure that we let the voters know and let people know what's happening? Because maybe people will be hesitant to build a home there if there's no place to send their children.
And 2 quick questions, 2 quick responses, because I could probably spend a half hour on that, but I won't. The first one is that we are the only sheltering place in Hillsborough County. So there are no charter schools that are shelters. So, and that costs us money that we pay for. So Sumner that we built is a shelter. Waterset that we're building is a shelter. And we pay for that. Part 2, I would say, is that I have to commend Dr. Hahn, who has spent countless hours. It is a time involvement and sometimes an investment that is challenging, is making sure that it's knowledgeable about it. So what I would recommend, Ms. Combs, and Amber and I will do that, is to set up some meetings with you to talk about what that looks like, so that when we go into a joint meeting with the county commission, or that when you have those one-on-one grocery store conversations, that there's a little bit more ammunition to push back on that, because there are definitely some historical things. Legally speaking, Mr. Porter very well articulated that we've had 2 judges support that we can't do these things, because that's the crux of the issue. Infrastructure, and the county doesn't have a lot of money. And as someone that 4 years ago, we didn't have a lot of money, I get it. But unfortunately, the houses are being built and the schools aren't. And as we've talked about, the crisis is here. Sumner, putting portables at Sumner is heartbreaking to me. When we build a beautiful school like that, and then within a year later we're putting portables on there, I mean, I know it's aesthetics and things like that, but it just kills me that we do that part of it too. So we most assuredly are looking forward to the positive and what we can do to kind of work through that. And if Westlake goes through, that's an elementary, middle, and high school, and that's one that it won't be the end result, but it's a good first step to get us where we need to go.
Okay, and just in closure, Chris, can you share again the date? We are meeting with the BOCC as a group. So those questions and the heated dissidence that we are now kind of feeling again can be aired to a certain extent. And individually, board members, you can meet with the county commissioners. Many of you already do. So that also can be done. So the date, it's in
Yes, it's the 29th,
Right.
and the time is 1:30.
Okay, all right, so that's what we'll have. We're going to go ahead and have a break at this point, just so the Superintendent Davis knows. Superintendent Davis, you do have consensus from the board for Plan A. Thank you, Ms. Dickerson and Mr. Farkas. You did an excellent job and very thorough. So, board members, if you'd like to stretch your legs, take a few minutes, and then we'll get into Generate. Okay, board members, let's see if we can get our superintendent also. Okay, I hear the words "I'm coming," so here we are. Yeah, that's okay. There's a need for the workshop regarding Generate. I called for it for maybe the reason is partly because new board members may not be familiar with it. The reason also is a 25-year contract brought before previous Superintendent Akins. There is a lot of investment that they're doing and a lot of energy savings. Hopefully we will see monies coming to our fiduciary department because of their presence. Board members, this is a very long contract. It's almost as if, they're going to be, you'll be hearing from them more and more or about them. And so we all need to be very cognizant of what their history is, what they're doing now in terms of energy savings, and of course with our students there'll be some training programs. So with that being said, Superintendent Davis, did you want to add anything before I recognize? Okay, so if you all can introduce yourselves. Mr. Farkas, can you make the introductions?
I certainly will. Steve Gossett from Generate Capital is here, and Phil from McKinstry is also here, who's one of our engineering support. We'll talk a little bit about that. I actually am excited with this opportunity. We won't go too far down history lane about how the contract originated, but more importantly, our relationship with Generate Capital. So where we were in 2016, I know that you guys get lots of emails from constituents and teachers and parents about air conditioning. And I know it feels like there's a lot of it. I can tell you in 2016, it was a lot worse in that case. There was at least 100 systems that need to be completely replaced. We've been able to get through 58 of them. But just so it wasn't taken my word of mouth, we took 3 headlines from the Tampa Bay Times is what it looked like on a regular basis. The top picture is from Plant High School, their gymnasium, where we had to get a temporary chiller and put yellow tubing to get into it. Those were realistic problems. And the biggest concern we had was we couldn't fix them. We didn't have the funds to do it. We didn't have the supplies to do it. And so we were in a spot where we had to look at, we literally were doing press conferences from the AC repair room over at maintenance. That's where we did our press conferences from because it was such a big problem. At that time, we looked out and said, hey, what else can we do to try to get help? This is not working for us. We need to look at alternative means. The referendum had not been passed. We were told the referendum would not pass, and the board would not push for a referendum. In fact, Ms. Gray was one of the first people to kind of say, hey, this is something that we have to do. So at that time, we looked and before that referendum passed, we went and got a relationship with Generate Capital, minimized originally, but was bought out. So what is the solution? What does that look like? The number 2 is the most important one, which is it's paid from savings and it's not financed. You'll hear things about ESCOs and things like that are part of it. This is one where it's a long-term relationship. To your point, Ms. Gray, it is a long-term relationship. 25 years. It is not a vendor that comes and makes money. If there's a problem, we steer that problem together. When we got the referendum, we sat with Generate and said, okay, what can we do now to kind of supercharge to make that go quicker? Because patience for not having air conditioning is something I don't have, and I definitely think that it's something that will do it. So I want to recognize a couple people as we get into this next stop. There's a lot of engineering and data geeks, and no offense to Steve or Phil, who are both very much into this, but we also have to have someone on our side of the house that knows it as well. So Patty Simmons and her team, and also Kenny Otero Jr. and his team in AC are huge parts of it. So I want to recognize them because when we get an agreement, they literally go through the data piece by piece. Patty and her team ensure that the data matches up, the dollars match up. Kenny and his team is responsible for implementation. So it is both sides of our house get together and kind of come up with a solution. And it's an important part of it. You hear the term NCOPA, it's very simply no capital outlay. That's the plan. We get it from savings as opposed to doing that. So what do we do first? The return on investment, the ROI on LED lights is pretty simple. It takes about 6 years for us to make our money back and start saving money. We did $200 million worth of LED lighting retrofits. Looked at our HVAC and also looked at energy management. So that's where the money that Generate is kind of put into it. And Steve, jump in whenever you want to.
Okay, yeah, I'll take the ball. And to format that we're using today, I'm going to go through slide material very quickly so we can get into Q&A and then interact with you guys a little bit more. And I've spoken with all of you at various times about this, but at different levels of involvement over the time period of being involved in this program. But starting out, let me actually, I'm going to Vanna White for myself here a moment and just unpack the 3 layers of what our primary first phase investment is about, and then we can talk about the future, and then talk about, if we have time, maybe even show you guys some technology real quick, which is why I've brought Phil to the dais to be able to show you some of the stuff that we're really excited about. But so let's start with lighting. We're about 90% of the way through doing about 500,000 light fixture replacements with new technology. And that's really big. That's a lot of building space. That's 27 million square feet. That is a gigantic project. Massive, investment of time, activity, and coordination inside of the district. Not onesie, twosie kind of school stuff like other people did. You guys did a very broad approach to that with us. That's a pretty dramatic impact in the learning environment. And yes, LED lights are more energy efficient than conventional lights, but more importantly than that, it's a lot closer to natural sunlight. There's tons of studies that talk about the therapeutic benefit of using these types of technologies, which is a big factor in that. And there's actually a brief commentary from Principal Salters at Lake High School about that, and about some of the impact in classroom, about how that is a positive. We are also doing that because there's some things related to how you create a holistic approach to dealing with the mechanical HVAC, air conditioning problems that Hillsborough County Public Schools had. That's not unique to Hillsborough County Public Schools, but was in crisis mode prior to the referendum and continues as we go through trying to change a historic period of using Band-Aids to being from that to proactive. We were using LED lighting and the savings that we create from that to help us fund being proactive, which is really, this is when the energy engineering geek in me has to try to relax and just speak to lay people terms. But this is really cool. What we did is, what we're calling HVAC optimization is really this process where you look at all of the stuff that you guys have in there in the district, and you have literally tens of thousands of major equipment pieces distributed throughout your district. It is an enormous undertaking what we're talking about, the numbers of things that are out there. So the first thing that we did was, let's inventory what's actually out there. Let's go find out everything that you actually have out in your district, out in your buildings. Let's put what we call QR code tags. You guys are probably all familiar with QR codes at this point, but tag every device that's out there so now we know where it is, what it is. Let's take that and then evaluate, what condition is it in? Is it working? Is it not working? If it's not working, why isn't it working? Can it be fixed? Should it be fixed? Is it so old that maybe it should just be replaced or put onto a plan? You start to see this proactive thing, and sure, this sounds like common sense, but people fail. Someone from outside of looking at what you guys are dealing with fails to appreciate what happens with scale. You are a very large, complex organization. 27 million square feet across, call it 270 campuses. This is an enormous undertaking to do this. So in the process of doing that, we're really trying to get at how you build a plan. If you think back on the period of the referendum of saying, how much money do we need? What are we going to spend it on? When are we going to spend it? What's the data that goes behind that? What's the planning that goes behind it? Because that's really big. Why do that? In what order? That was a big part of what the teamwork was with Chris and team, is about getting out there, getting your arms around what the problem is, taking inventory of that problem, and then creating a data-driven plan for how we approach that. And that's why I want to reserve some time to show you guys a little bit about what that is, because we created a solution that's technology-driven that is really thinking about the assets, the future of those assets, how to optimize how you run them, how you maintain them, and how you ultimately replace them. Okay, so that's really what I'm trying to convey to you guys at the high level, is that this was the structure around how we do that plan. That fits in with the referendum as well. Now, obviously, we were investing a lot of money driven by savings to create the framework for a plan, hoping that the referendum would pass. Subsequently did pass in the process of our development. Now it's, how do we make the $1.15 to $1.3 billion that gets collected through referendum funds spend the furthest, go the deepest, and have the greatest impact on the reliability and comfort of your classroom. It's kind of foreign to me until you guys not ask me questions as I'm going, so I'm going to get through this so you can start doing that. After you do that, the next thing is you'll hear this phrase active energy management. And what on earth is that? What the difference is with active energy management is that you're engaging with the buildings in a real-time basis of how they're running right now. Not trying to do forensic analysis of what the building used to do, trying to get in there right now today and drive how that building performs right now to be able to minimize the energy use at the wrong times, which is literally what it sounds like. Turn things off when people aren't in the building, set them back so that when they're not being used for classroom activities, they're not wasting energy. But there's a lot more to it than that. Envision the check engine light in your car, but for buildings, and put it on steroids. That's what we're doing. We're watching your buildings using this technology and this technology integration, not only to make sure they're running at their peak performance energy-wise. The bigger goal is to figure out if there's something wrong before it disrupts the classroom. That's a really big deal. Can I identify through diagnostics and through technology of watching what's happening that there's something wrong that's going to happen before it's disruptive? That's the ultimate goal. And then can I give a process to where not only Hillsborough County Public Schools resources on staff, but also the third-party contractors and everyone else, that we connect holistically how everything is happening in the classroom.
So as Steve talked about, one of the things that we're working through is, well, why am I getting emails about AC now? If all this stuff, this sounds great, why is there an AC down at any school? Well, getting from point A to where we were to point B, which is, we'll talk about this optimization and energy efficiency, is things break. It sounds great to turn things off, but if they don't come back on very rarely, what we've done historically is we'll just leave them on 24/7 to make sure that if we're afraid if we turn them off, they won't turn back on. So as we replace it, we've done 58 school replacements. That's a ton. I will tell you that before the referendum, we would do 1 or 2, possibly 3 a year. In 2.5 years, we've done 58 replacements. But there's also 45 to 50 more schools that need total replacement. So you're getting emails, you're getting calls from schools that need replacement. Also, with the thousands and thousands of parts, things break from time to time as well as a normal fix as it does in a house, things like that. But remember, it's not the simple coil system you have in your house. There's a lot of other parts that go with it. But I just want to point out, you're going to see, and we've learned together with some of the stuff, with some of the things we've had to change. The other part that I will talk about is personnel, and that's where McKinstry, and I know that Phil talked. Getting qualified individuals to do HVAC work in Florida is a huge challenge. They pay 10 times more than we do, give bonuses, work overtime, do all the things that we're not able to do. It's the same thing with engineering. We don't have 10 engineers on site, even though we have 27 million square feet. Through Generate and McKinstry, we actually have an ability. The QR codes are very simple. So now I can send someone out to an HVAC project. They scan the QR code and can call a call center at McKinstry. That's where we're at now. So they can actually get expert feedback on here's what we see on the computer, here's what we see on the diagnostic standpoint. One of the more challenging things that I see is I'll get a call from a high school that's down. Kenny Otero will send a tech out to get it fixed, and literally it's a reset. So they've been without, say, AC for 2 hours. They go out there, push a button, and they reset the system, and it starts cooling. Well, in Florida, it's very hard to catch up once the AC's been down for a little bit. So being able to do that online, being able to do that in an automated way is a wonderful thing. Here's the problem. Some of our systems were so antiquated, we had literally 50 or 60 schools that we had to go put in new thermostats because no one could see those thermostats. Now, at your house, you can see it on a phone, see all your AC, what it is. We couldn't even see them within the building. So we have gone through that process, and that's the last 2 years has built to us. But I just want to say we are in this process of getting to where we need to go, and that's why you're still going to see some of those AC fixes as they come up. But Steve, go ahead.
And I'm going quick because I want to get in Q&A with you guys, but I kind of blew by that. I've got a long history with this company, McKinstry, that I've done a lot of good projects with. Basically brought in a partner to deploy some of these technologies, and then we're still using a tremendous amount of local, contractors, laborers, and a lot of people in McKinstry who are, in Tampa. That we're creating jobs in the county, doing this work using local labor. The McKinstry team has a history of doing the kinds of projects we're doing here at Amazon and Microsoft and Boeing and these kind of people you think of as these technology leaders around using this, we're taking the same kinds of concepts and then layering that into Hillsborough County Public Schools to build this plan. So that's what we're deploying, is the stuff that's coming in is designed to work with your workforce and with the future of your workforce and with the third-party contracting community here, but do it in a way that is the cutting edge of technology so that we're getting as much for your money as we can. So, and hopefully we'll have some time to play with the really cool, super gigantic toy that we have built to run your schools, because I'm really excited about it, but we can come back and show you another time if we don't have time. Let me go ahead and play a couple of quick interviews with Principal Salters out at Blake High School.
I heard nothing but good reviews from our teachers and students because of the lighting and it's more bright in the classroom. The students are able to see, and the teachers are able to really get a hold and see around the entire classroom. So it's very positive. Students are, wow, it's bright in here. So they're excited, and it makes the learning environment a little bit more exciting. The fact that it's LED lighting makes it a lot more bright and more energy efficient, and really it just brightens up the entire campus completely. So when you, just like in this room right now, it is very bright. You don't have to worry about whether the lights are dim or anything like that. So it makes a better learning environment. This has been a multi-year process. And so in that regard, they know it's a lot of money spent to really upgrade our systems. So the staff are really excited about it. They're definitely wanting to see more and more because they feel the effects, especially from the AC side of the house. Oh, the app is phenomenal in my opinion because it's very easy to use. I mean, within a matter of 30 seconds, I was able to schedule AC for the weekend with my administrator being out. So, I mean, really, it's definitely a benefit for me. And then when we show up, the AC is actually on. We don't have to call a technician and say what's going on. They're able to make sure it's on, and if they don't, they have automatically send a technician out to turn everything on if it's not on, but it's been on every day since we've used it. So it's a benefit to me, definitely.
So what we saw at Blake 2.5 years ago is what you're seeing at Leonard right now, where the system breaks, we go fix it, and then something else breaks. And it is a constant turnabout. The teacher doesn't care because the reality is the AC didn't work yesterday and it didn't work on Wednesday, kind of a thing. So that part of it. Blake, we were able to do the HVAC, the referendum project, and replace the AC, but also put in system. Just real quick, if you want to schedule AC for an event at one of our, if you have a recital at night or you've got a chorus performance, you had to put a maintenance request in, had to be accepted by the AC department, and then actually put in the AC system and programmed. Now, literally, you just saw it on Mr. Salter's phone. He can go in, click which room he wants, put the time in it on an Outlook type Outlook calendar, hit the button, and it's scheduled. I mean, so it has taken the manpowers out and has made it such a streamlined process. Again, I say that now like it was simple. It certainly wasn't. There was tons of things we had to do to get there, but it is a perfect example of taking something off an administrator that had to worry about, is the AC going to be on when I show up to school this afternoon for an event?
And you put that across 27 million square feet, the complexity of that, how big of a lift that problem is, it's enormous. And further, when you make the HV, the old way to do it with a piece of paper and somebody's scheduling, with this many buildings and this many systems, what are the odds that that gets cleared out and doesn't keep running, at 2 p.m. every Sunday? It's with the stuff that we've done with the technology, it's automated all of that. And it's a tremendous impact, which we'll get into some of the impact financially of what that does in a moment. I'm going to play one more video, then we're going to go through 3 quick slides to be able to get into Q&A, just to try to make sure we make the calendar. Just click anywhere in the blank space there.
From a school side perspective, it's going to help everything from scheduling the air conditioning, how the air conditioning is running, diagnosing problems before the school finds them. And from a district perspective, it's going to help with energy savings. Well, the more we can be proactive in fixing things, the more we can actually get them done prior to the school even knowing that there's a problem. And that's kind of our goal, is fix it before they even realize that it's broken. So by the computer actually running through the systems, looking for problems ahead of time, it allows us to deploy our resources faster. The more we can save, the more money we're going to have for other things in the district.
Okay. interest of time, I am going to actually jump to this slide. So there's approximately $5 million in energy savings created by the lighting program and another $7 million created by the energy management solution. The lighting is already done. Energy management is coming online district-wide by the end of September. The graph that you're looking at is actually, in engineering speak, a 12-month backcasting of the last year's worth of data to show what the impact is. The light green portion is the lighting actually showing up at the meter, creating approximately the $5 million savings we're looking for. The energy management should, by the time we have gotten to near the end of the 2022 school year, we should have enough backcasting data to be able to show you how it's working. I can tell you it is functioning as it's expected. We're seeing that at the meter. We're going to continue to be able to dashboard and eventually create some visibility for you and the community to be able to see this on a near real-time basis of seeing what's going on. Much longer story we can tell, the utility costs everywhere in Florida and for most of the country continue to rise. All the data is based on 2018's baseline. The energy cost has gone up approximately 15%. You guys have had some other conversations around the TECO rate stuff. So the $37 million approximate budget has gone up. If there was no intervention, it would have gone up in the 40s, low 40s. So you do have to account for cost increases over time for the balance of the rest of the district. But at the actual meter and the consumption basis, we're talking about a reduction of about 33% of the total energy spend before we do solar. We'll talk about the future and talk about solar as well. What impact, just to try to give you 110 million kilowatt hours per year reduced. That just sounds like a gigantic number, and trying to get context to it. That would be about the energy required to charge about half the cell phones in the world, which is approximately 1.4 billion of them. So it's a lot. It's really big. It's a lot of energy. It's 267 or so million miles driven by car. I mean, it's a significant energy impact. So you guys should be really, impressed with what you've already accomplished. I'm going to touch on some high points and then just hit some points that have come up before. A lot of times we talk about 2035 as being a goal. I mean, you might have just seen the city of Los Angeles just announced they're going to do fully renewable resourcing for all of their stuff by 2035. And so it's usually the yardstick we talk about in 2035. We have several goals related to this program with the district. I would bundle them into trying to get high performance mechanical systems district-wide by the end of the referendum period, on a new construction basis, going for more of a net zero. You guys have probably heard some stuff with Osceola County's projects that people have been talking about. We're looking at some interesting stuff related to your new construction efforts in that here. More to speak to on that later, but that's a goal of trying to get to a net zero energy for new construction activity for the district moving forward. And then the grid resiliency and solar. There's a lot of complexity related to Florida law on solar that we can get into in another, workshop or discussion. Suffice to say, we're working on that. We've got a great plan. We're working on that issue. We'd also like to make sure that the sites that are designated shelter have grid resiliency. So that would mean energy storage, so that in a disruption, in a storm event, we would be able to use energy storage and have those facilities be available with energy as a shelter. Then the last is transportation. You guys have probably been talking. I know there's been some conversations around electric buses. Member Gray has brought it up a few times. We're a really big player in the electric fleet and electrification of fleet stuff. We're working on a plan with that. Obviously, there's some complexity around driver shortage and routing right now that has a big impact that, electric infrastructure has a harder time getting an entire route added to it because you have charging time. Having said that, there's a lot of really interesting technology coming out in that. So we're working on that, and we're going to come back to you guys with a plan around transportation sometime during this school year. I do want to touch on one more slide and then turn it over to Q&A. We have been talking about classroom integration into this program, and we are now rolling that out. So it's referred to as Power Ed. Phil and his team are leading the effort on this. But what we're seeking to do is connect classroom from pre-K all the way into adult continuing education into the issues around energy as it relates to this tied to STEM. This is the future. Things that are going on around renewable energy and everything else like that. This is a great opportunity for us to connect to that, and we're going to be providing you guys a lot more information as that's rolling out through the rest of the year. So, Chris, you want to jump any more on?
I just want to talk about, in appeal to, depending on where your personal choice is, the financial savings are a big part. It's $12 million a year is what the financial savings are. The carbon footprint is also a huge part of what we're doing. So we talked about what that's going to look like as we go to solar and go to electric buses. And then the third part is the education component, which we have, which is Power Ed. It is important that we hit all three of those in this relationship. And the one positive I'll say is that a lot is made of the 25-year contract, and I had the same reaction when I first learned of it, is that the rates are fixed, meaning that what we're paying to this company is the same as it's going to be. So when cost goes up we have more savings that we get out of the TECO, we don't pay them more money. So as costs go up as a natural part of inflation, no offense to them, I'm happy they get enough. I don't mean that way, but reality is our costs won't go up to them. Our costs are fixed. That's the one positive of having that long of a contract. So I think that's an important part to make sure y'all are aware. When TECO goes up 15%, their costs stay the same, even though our savings go up that much more.
That was actually one of the changes when we did the restatement in the contract, was to improve that, to make sure that you guys receive the benefit of that. So, so with that, Member Grady, you guys want to?
Yes, sirree. Thank you, Steve. And so board members, big topic, lots of questions. And Member Combs, do you want to start again? And then we'll just go around the room.
Sure, I'll start again. You know, I wasn't here when this contract was signed, so I don't really have the historical background. You know, I've talked to you, but we need to meet more. I guess for me, a lot of times it's the marketing of our schools and how that impacts when our air is down. So I'm not one who's on social media a lot, but people often tag me, you know, if they're in the classroom and there's no air. And recently I've seen where people want to buy portable air conditioners for teachers. Here's the cost. I think that really negatively impacts the image of our district. So that's one of my biggest concerns. And so I guess I have a few questions that go along with that. We turn off the air instead of lowering it. I mean, I'm not an HVAC person, but I sometimes wonder the cost of actually, you know, turning on an entire school when you walk in. How does that impact the school, instead of maybe when I leave my house and I'm going out of town, I usually leave it at 80 or something like that. My first question is, why are we turning it all off? Because I would think that would impact the system more and not be as effective. I mean, is that a cost savings, or how does that impact the system?
We actually do set it back like you do with your house, as opposed to turn it off, because you don't want, in Florida in particular, you have humidity issues. You could create safety problems with that. So we set it back rather than off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that.
I misunderstood, because I thought from some schools told me that they turned it all the way off, or some classrooms.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. Again, Phil with McKinstry, thanks for having me today. So each piece of equipment is different, each school is different. What our programs do and what we're managing in the district in partnership with Kenny and his team is we do turn equipment off when it's not needed, but we also have three settings, which is basically off, on, and standby, or shoulder mode. So we set back temperatures like you do when you go on vacation for pieces of equipment when in the morning and in the evenings, you know, when things aren't going to be off for a very long time, or when they're not occupied. And then we do shut things off at night or when they don't need to be on. So some systems do need to run specifically for a long period of time, like take a chiller or a central plant, you know, putting cooling into a system. They can't be part loaded, otherwise they break. You know, they're designed to run at certain loads. So those things don't turn off, you know, unless they need to be fully turned off, right? So there's engineering that goes into these programs that turn on and off equipment. But running equipment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year is not necessary. And it does cost a lot in terms of energy, and it costs a lot in terms of equipment repairs. You know, equipment isn't designed to do that either. It's not designed to be running all the time, and when it does, it tends to need to be repaired or broken or replaced way before it would really need to be. So that's a cost savings in terms of asset preservation. So we look at it for those two kind of buckets of, hey, how can we prolong the life of this equipment? And then how can we make this equipment, not cost as much in terms of electricity?
But on Phil's point, one of the learning curves they've had with running into our antiquated system is exactly what he said, which is, hey, this doesn't need to be running. Well, some of our equipment we have had to put on 24/7 to that point, because the classroom comfortability is the number one thing that we have to have. And we struggle with some of that stuff, and we've had some learning curves over the summer and things that we've done to do that. If the system's optimal and it's running as one of our new 58s, that's a non-issue, Ms. Combs. It's a great question. But some of our older systems, we have had to say, we got to pull this one out, and it's what Kenny and I have those conversations. So it is a challenge for us to try to get to where we know it's going to be, knowing that the system may shut down. So we have a huge problem with that. I will also, the other thing, we have portable air conditioning. If it's more than 24 hours, we have what are called spot coolers. The problem is some of our older schools don't have the electric infrastructure to do it. So we can plug it in, but it doesn't have the power of the grid actually to keep it up. So we run into some issues with that. But if it's more than 24 hours, traditionally we put spot coolers into rooms. Spot coolers don't get it to 73, 74 degrees. It gets it at 76, 78. So there's still air circulation, but it's not where it needs to be on that part too. I just want to say that is a big difference that we run into now. And again, there are still issues out there, and it definitely comes to us. And again, I would also say to the board, as I've said to each one of you individually, I'd rather hear it 10 times. So if you do hear that, feel free to text me or send it to me or email it to me, that information. 99% of the time it's on the radar, but every once in a while it is not. So I'd rather hear it a bunch than not hear it at all, to make sure we get the repair, because Mr. Otero gets to work 7 days a week in solving those problems, because he gets texts from me literally 7 days a week. I want to make sure we know and get repair out there.
Okay, and then I have one more comment and one more question. And I would like to see, I would like to receive like a spreadsheet with the status on things like that, and if there's difficulties in that school, because it seems like there are some schools where it's continual problems, and some people feel like, okay, well, some areas of school get taken care of right away and some don't, which obviously I know isn't true, but that's the perception of some people who work in that school. So I personally would love to have a spreadsheet of every school, if there is an issue that year, if it was resolved, if there's another issue, so that way I can see if there's a trend in certain pockets, in certain areas. Is it the building? What's happening that there's certain schools that are historically having the same problem over and over? Because if I see a teacher with a picture of an air conditioner, her thermostat being, 80 degrees or whatever the case is, or does the air have to be turned on or off? Because I hear different things from different schools, and now I understand why. So that's another comment or question that I would like to see. So that way, if there is a school that's historically having an issue, maybe that needs to be bumped up and we need to take care of that HVAC system sooner.
And real quick on that, we have a top 25 and a top 50 we'll share with the board as far as what the next systems that are out there too. We will look, and I'll look at developing. It may take us a little bit of time. Right. We'll look at developing that. On a regular basis, I get an update from Mr. Otero. That's a spreadsheet of what the daily issues are, and we've kind of changed that a little bit to make sure that we stay on top of it. But we'll look at trend analysis so we can look at all 250. So
I would like to, if it's from this year on or from this point on, I would like to see historically, if you're having an issue with a school, we write down the date, the issue, and then if it happens again, that way at the end of the year we can see if there's any trends. Because I think if we're always trying to deal with the problem, sometimes there are some schools that feel like historically they're not being taken care of if they're not in the top 25. The other comment I had is that, Volusia County created a workforce academy. We're really into workforce academy and HVAC system. Have we thought about, that's a great opportunity for a lot of children who don't want to go to college to actually creating something like that here in Hillsborough County, probably in at least two areas, and creating an HVAC workforce, because we know it's an issue even in your own home, much less in the district. So that's just something I thought of, and maybe we can work on that and develop something like that, an HVAC type of workforce, and let's not wait 5 years for that, because this is a real issue that we're dealing with every day. And I do think, unfortunately, it's probably one of the most negative marketing issues, as far as, you see all the time, people on social media will say, oh, there's no ACs, there's no buses, all these issues. And I know that it's a huge problem, but it still doesn't matter. We still need to make sure that we don't have that type of, narrative in our district.
So you stated a couple of things in there that all wanted to jump in on. I would definitely say that the Academy statement, not just for HVAC, but also solar, both of those things, and racking and things that are tied to installing that, We're very interested in that. They're very much in conversations around that of continuing education and also academy style with, middle school into high school. We're definitely having those conversations. So not 5 years. We're definitely right now talking about that.
We have one. We have two, actually, two areas exactly the way you described it. Tampa Bay Tech Night School. Lionel Gonzalez ran that for us for years, and now we have another person that's running it. So Scott Brooks is part of that. Scott Brooks and I both were former principals at Tampa Bay Tech and saw that. I will tell you the biggest challenge with that, which is when they get done with that area, there are 5 companies that are here that will pay them 2 or 3 times as much money as we pay them that are going to go out of that. So we have training academies and we have them work on the systems they're at. But unfortunately, until we look at what that looks like from a pay standpoint, the HVAC workers are going to go work for McKinstry or one of the AC repair places that we don't do. But we have 2 academies at our schools, so we train them at our high schools in night school because of the liability of adult ed. And the number of people we get from that is minimal, to be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try. I actually agree with it because I think we need to train people either as a service to the industry because they're short too. Every year in August, we have 13 different HVAC contractors, at least, and Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but 75% of them get tapped out and say, I can't send anybody to you. You have to go to somebody else. We don't have enough air workers. So they run into the same problem that we do. So whether it's to supply us or to supply other people, getting enough AC workers is a huge issue. But we have 2 different academies, so I'll talk to Mr. Brooks and see if possibly we can do 3 or 4 of those. But yeah, we have 2 that are currently working. They've been in since at least the last 8 to 10 years.
I mean, I just think maybe we can be a little innovative, bonuses, or do something to guarantee those kids once they graduate to maybe give us 2 years or something we can do to just think outside the box of how we can get more of those students to stay with us and commit to us. Maybe not long term, but maybe 2 years. Like when you do a union apprenticeship, you get all the training, but then you have to commit for so many years, or when you go in the military and you have to commit so many years afterwards. I mean, we can think outside the box of how we can keep more of these people.
And thank you, Member Combs. I will tell you that Superintendent Davis wrote down your ideas, the spreadsheet, and also we did ask Deborah Pepe, I asked this 2 years ago, to start the climate studies in a curriculum. And I think it's high time we do that because the Netherlands, other countries are definitely teaching that. So without further, and that's something that will come up because we're a bunch of educators here. So Member Combs, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and, given the time constraints, try to go through the entire board right now. Member Perez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple of questions. So how often is our preventative maintenance conducted?
That's a great question. It's one of the things that part of the new contract that McKinstry is working on. So previously, certain things were done with an outside vendor and done regularly. Filter changes, things like that are done regularly. I would say the regular preventive maintenance was one of our biggest issues and has been our biggest issue in AC work. It's done rarely. So part of McKinstry's charge and part of the savings that we have for them is them actually doing preventive maintenance on all of our projects. The project that Steve talked about, going in asset and QR tagging, all of it was the first step of that. So now preventive maintenance is going to be required as part of their contract. They have to report to us what they've done and make sure that it's done. So to answer your question, a long answer to a short question, it wasn't at all 2 years ago, and now every single piece of equipment will have preventive maintenance on it with documented preventive maintenance within the next 6 months.
Out of concern for speed, we're not going to be able to get deeper into this. I will say very quickly that we're trying to do preventive maintenance based on data to try to assess condition rather than schedule, so that allows us to be more efficient in the way we go about it and go deeper. We're probably going to have to set another time, or I can do one-on-ones with you guys with Phil and dig in and show you guys some stuff on that.
Okay. And when was?
Yes, I'm sorry, Member Perez.
And when did you receive the 20-year contract?
2017 is when the 25-year contract is when they started. 2017. We took a restatement back as a year now.
December
a year ago that changed many things in a positive way. We believe so. It's 25 years from last December, correct?
For most of it, yes, from last December. That there's still program elements related specifically to preventive maintenance that is coming online now, as we're rolling that out.
Okay, and I'm not finished yet. So, okay, so we have 55 ACs that have been upgraded. We have We have that need to be upgraded, 55. We have 58 that have been upgraded since 2018, correct? And how many ACs do we have down currently as of today?
Kenny, you're welcome to come up here to answer that. That's what the call, we have Kenny and I talk every morning about 6 or 6:15 to get that update. But to answer your question, the reason we've only done 58, and I say only 58 because that's a huge undertaking, is because of the amount of capacity we have. You got to stand that, Mike. The 55 is total replacement. There's a right on the top of it here. Let me help.
Thank you.
How many are down right now, Kenny? How many calls have you gotten this morning?
So as of this morning, there's no schools that are down completely. As you know, rooms, individual, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Individual rooms down. You know, I don't have an exact number. I mean, there's scattered all over the district. Building wise, I don't have any complete buildings down at this point. So you know, I do that for him every morning. First thing I do between 4 or 4:30 is I check all the chiller pages to see, you know, kind of a global approach, and then I rely on communication to try to get down into the smaller the rooms and the buildings.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that I have an understanding. So I'm trying to get the understanding of this marriage. So the tax referendum dollars are paying for the HVAC, correct?
That's correct. We do the actual repair of the project.
And pay for the new systems.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then Generate comes in and provides the lighting, okay, and then the app for the energy management. How much money in savings since all this has taken place since 2018 has there been for Hillsborough County Schools?
So far, we can go back and run a report. So there's a construction period where all these different efforts have been deployed. So right now, the lighting has been in place. It's saving approximately $5-something million per annum, and the energy manager is just coming on. So I'll go pull the actual data to try to run from inception to now, but just kind of doing this, I would bet it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 11-12 million.
11 or 12 million. And how much has the referendum paid for HVAC systems so far?
$220 million based on the last one for the Citizens Oversight page, roughly about $250 million.
Okay. And I believe that was it. Thank you.
Great questions, Member Perez. Member Hahn?
Thank you, Member Gray. So obviously, given the dates, this contract preceded everybody except Ms. Gray and Ms. Snively. So I've been trying to educate myself over the last couple of years, and we've gone through 9 iterations of this contract since its original approval date, right? 9 iterations, and it's improved greatly every time because the original contract was not a good contract for us. I'm just going to say that. That was also before Generate. It was not, we were not involved with Generate at that time, but when they came on board, we worked really hard together on the last iteration, to really make some significant improvements in the contract. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for doing that with us. So my question, Leonard is my high school, so I think it's District 2 day in these conversations. So, and it's Miss Gray's high school and Member Perez's high school. And so I know we have a timeline for all of these repairs based on urgency. And you mentioned a lot of the reasons that these repairs or replacements have to happen over the summer, which also impacts these timeline. And so, but we also have a lot of schools like Leonard that are now popping up that may have been further down the timeline for repair replacement that have moved up because it's become urgent. And now that really impacts the overall timeline of all these other schools that gets now pushed back further down the timeline. How can our partnership with Generate help us maybe accelerate the timeline for some of these schools that have popped up recently? How can y'all help us manage our time, or, you know, reimagine the timeline given some of these unexpected needs that are happening?
Well, I'll talk first about Leonard in particular, then I'll let them address the financial part of it. So Leonard is already a project. Leonard and Thompson Elementary are actually on the same chiller system, ICE system. This summer, as part of a project, those will be separated, which means that 125,000 square feet will come off of that chiller, which I think is one of the problems with Leonard right now. And then Leonard will get a new tune-up, for lack of a better word, on their current chiller ICE system. So we are doing repairs now, so we're not waiting until next summer to actually fix Leonard. It's still an issue. Literally every morning it's Leonard is up today is the conversation that Kenny and I had. So it is our new Blake, for lack of a better word, but it is up. But in Kenny, there are a couple of things that we've done at Leonard that are smaller projects, but that is one that when we take Thompson off, it will be a big part of it. And I'll let Steve talk about that.
Yeah, trying to stay somewhat high level in this. The key to trying to assess how we do things, we've already done a lot of planning and put a lot more emphasis into planning that wasn't really available before. And so there's a lot of work going into trying to get in front of not finding out about Leonard when Leonard's a problem. There is some things we're in discussions on where we could supercharge the referendum a little bit and try to pull stuff that maybe would be done a few years down the road and do it now, because we have the financial resources to be able to do that and kind of defer a little bit of when that comes due. We're also trying to balance not blowing up the contractor community here, what their capacity is to do work. But I will say this, it's worth more conversation, obviously. And Dr. Hahn, we definitely talk about some of these things in some one-on-one stuff. But I think there is some value in trying to do more work faster, because I think it may make your money go further. Because it's a little bit like going to Sam's and buying in bulk versus buying in retail. And we're having some conversations with the operating team around that. You're good with the referendum funds that are going to come in over the next 8-9 years, but maybe some of the things that are going to be happening in year 9 should be happening now. So I don't want to put cart in front of horse, though, and like start talking about, because there's not a recommendation coming from superintendent staff yet for that, but I do think we're going to be having some conversations with you about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was even thinking of just the fact that you have such a more greater outreach to get us the resources, whether it's manpower or equipment, faster.
Exactly.
Right, than, what we traditionally, our avenues have been. So
that's
I'm
a good
hoping
point.
that partnership, you can reach out. You have a longer list of people to reach out to, and relationships that go beyond Hillsborough County, even beyond Florida, that can maybe help us, with getting some of this work done at a faster pace.
You're exactly right, Dr. Hahn, because we have 23 architects and engineers and 23 construction management firms that have projects for this coming up summer.
Right.
And so that does tap into a large majority of those people. So getting people from Clark County and Denver Public Schools, where McKinstry has relationships, and they've worked in large school districts like that, and saying, hey, it's worth it. For the next 7 or 8 years, we're going to be doing a large amount of AC work. It's worth it for you to kind of relocate here and to provide that. So their outreach is definitely something we need to tap into.
And I'm not saying that because I don't want to see us not use our local folks, but they are at capacity,
Correct.
right? They are, which is a great issue for the economy. But when you've got a broken AC like we have, it slows down that ability to respond.
We are. You're right, though. We are creating pull to get more resources into Tampa and get into Hillsborough County that have the capacity to do this. We're growing your tax base. We're creating jobs here. We're pulling workers here. We want to do even more, right? And if we can start doing some things to stretch your money further by accelerating the pace of what we're doing it, the ultimate goal is to try to eliminate classroom disruption, right? And no one likes to have the proverbial conversation of 10 kids and 2 Christmas presents, right? Like, we don't want to be in that situation. We're trying to accelerate that and make sure the money is landing where it should land as quickly as possible.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Those were good questions, and just your ultimate goal too is to save us money. So that's a big time goal. Thanks, Member Hahn, for getting into that big need. Member Washington, any questions?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Quickly, thank you, Steve, for the information you're sharing. Chris, can you explain to us how do we go about the 5-year plans? Because I've had quite a few people. How do you get on that list with the 5-year plan?
Actually, you guys have had a great conversation about how that 5-year plan starts in one place and then a Leonard happens and it gets reset. We look at it, we get together with a large group, and now McKinstry and Generate are part of that conversation. They actually have done an asset assessment, facility condition assessment of all of our facilities. So they actually are part of the conversation. But Kenny and his team get together with all the maintenance departments, look at how many maintenance requests we had, how many days are they down, what is the cost of the replacement, how long has it been, the age of the equipment, things like that. And they recommend a top 25. I will tell you our top 25 changes pretty regularly to do that. And then we have the budget that goes along with it. Luckily, with the sales tax referendum, we've been afforded the opportunity to do much more. But Kenny's team leads that because they're the ones that get those calls the first time when it goes down. So the 5-year plan is done with all the maintenance shops coming together, and now with McKinstry sitting at the table to help us find out what those numbers 1 through 25 are.
Oh, okay, so they do fluctuate, like Dr. Hahn was saying. In other words, schools move up and down on that list.
Regularly, yes, sir.
Regularly pertaining to the urgency. Next question here. And so when I notice sometime when the air conditioning units are out, they bring in some type of equipment. What is that equipment that they bring in? Because I think they had to bring in some equipment over to Young or somewhere when the air conditioning unit went out.
Yes, and we could talk. I want Phil to talk a little bit about the prioritization. But we have a couple of different ways to solve it. We've got temporary chillers, which literally is an 18-wheeler that has a chiller on the back of it. That's about $40,000 a month, just as a reference point. Kenny also has spot coolers and water-cooled spot coolers. And Kenny, I'll let you talk a little bit about the difference, but it is those are the three things that we do. They all have a cost to them, a significant cost, but obviously comfort of the classroom is number one priority.
So, like you said, we have to kind of balance the cost of, and triage. If it's a chiller, obviously that's the whole school. So if I know that chiller is going to be down for more than a day, and I don't have an exact time.
Chiller just went down. Yep.
So obviously if the chiller is going to be down for any length of time, we have to provide cooling to the entire site. The logistics of putting spot coolers in all the rooms is near impossible. One, the spot cooler vendor doesn't have enough, and two, it would take me a week to do that. So the first option is to bring in a portable chiller. And like you said, it's basically a 18-wheeler that's brought in, it's piped into the chiller. Electrical, everything is piped in, and it runs off of that while we get the chiller fixed up and running. The logistics of getting that, there's some that are local, but there's some in Orlando, there's some in Jacksonville, so my team works to try to get that as quick as possible. If it's individual rooms, and I know they're going to be down for more than 24 hours, my first step is what we call a water-cooled spot cooler. The water-cooled spot coolers will keep that building or that room at 70 degrees if we wanted to. They work phenomenal. The challenge with that is two things. One, it needs a sink, and the second thing is it uses a lot of water. So we kind of have to be careful in when we use those, but the rooms that don't have a sink, the only option is an air-cooled spot cooler. The challenge with that is we have to vent that somewhere. And there's two options. We can vent it through a window, which is the better option. That'll usually keep the room at about 75, 76 degrees where we want it. The other option, if it's an interior space or there's no windows, we have to vent it through the ceiling. And that presents a challenge as you're putting hot air back into the classroom. So you're going to get airflow. If a teacher stands right on it, they're going to feel cold air. They're going to get air movement. It's going to keep it safe, but it's probably going to keep it between 78, 80, so it's not the ideal solution, but it's a stopgap until we can get that fixed. In these times, I hate to blame COVID just like everybody, but the supply chain has been devastated. So something that may have taken us a week to get, it's taken sometimes a month. And there's absolutely no, we look at every possible option to get it here sooner. And then one of our challenges in some of our older schools is the equipment has to be custom built. So it's not something that we can just go to a parts store, buy off a shelf, even if it was available. It literally has to be built for that space and installed, and the time it takes to do that. You know, our response time is there. We can get someone there. We can diagnose the problem. But if it's a part, that's when we run into those problems.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to know. Thank you. Appreciate it, Kenny.
I wanted to just tack on to that first question around capital planning. You know, how do we make the 5-year plan and that, because there has been a little bit of change that we've been working on the last year on that process. Over the course of the last year and a half or so, we've gone through and looked at every asset in all the schools across the entire district. And when I say asset, I mean any piece of equipment that makes up the construction of the building worth over $5,000. There's right now just over 29,000 assets that you all have across your district. We looked at each one of those and we've scored that based on its condition. So we've put engineering eyes on it. We've said, you know, we've rated it, its condition, if it's got cracks, it's the coils are gummed up, if it's, you know, if there's a problem with it. We've assessed its impact. So what's the chance that that equipment could fail? And if it does fail, what's the impact of that? And we look at that in terms of an occupy impact, like if something goes out, could you not occupy that space? And then also specifically a classroom impact. So that's something we would have to get the students out of that class so they couldn't use it because it had no air conditioning, for example. You know, some things fail and, you know, they're not critical items, right? And so we've rated all that, and we've also estimated a replacement cost for each one of those pieces of equipment. Each asset has its own current net present value that, you know, what's that equipment worth to the district right now? Because you have, you know, $2.5 billion worth of assets sitting across your building. So it's a significant amount of capital that we want to manage. And so when we look to create what's the top 25 or where should that capital go, we look at that at a very specific or asset by asset level so that we can make smart decisions around where that capital should go. And should we be replacing something or should we be optimizing it? We talked about maintenance or energy. You know, we have different decisions. Should we repair it? Should we, you know, tweak it and spend money doing that so it performs better? Or should that equipment be replaced? So you've got to sort of understand that, you know, how much shelf life does it still have? So that is something, and I'd be happy offline to show that in high detail. That's part of the technology where all that information is stored and you can access and see that for yourselves.
There's a little bit of imagery in the background here that wasn't a slide. It's more than just a pretty face. There's actually images taken out of the dynamic system that does that. We can actually go through and run analysis now on a real-time basis against the condition right now of every asset at every campus and show you the data that goes into how the 5-year plan is made more dynamically now. And is it perfect? It's not perfect still because something can still break you're not anticipating. But we do have a heck of a lot of information as to what's going into how the plans are made now.
So with all those remarks, perhaps we're looking at maybe not a workshop necessarily, but maybe a great PowerPoint. This is excellent PR, by the way, and we're looking for that. But anyway, I want to make sure that we get every board member a chance to ask questions. Member Vaughn will be next. Member Vaughn, are you there?
I am, yep. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
if you'll ask your questions, and then I have a few questions to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually don't have a lot of questions because I did meet with Steve earlier virtually this week and had a lot of questions that were answered. I am really glad to hear some of the other conversations from the other board members. I mean, I think that we really have to talk about and address, you know, the air conditioning crisis that we have in our schools at the beginning of each year and what that looks like, especially as we're expecting students to wear masks. But in general, I'm really excited about the Generate ideas. I love moving everything to a more green option that offers more stability and cost savings. one of the questions I did kind of have after listening to other board members were, you know, from what I'm hearing in regards to a lot of the challenges with, you know, being more responsive to being able to fix our air conditionings are, you know, parts and labor is, I know we've talked about with having kind of these, you know, internal mainframes that can self-diagnose and, you know, also provide the ability to turn things on and off, you know, remotely and allow administrators more access to that. With the challenges that we're talking about now as far as access to parts and older models, is there any way that, you know, the changes that we're making to kind of all automate anything is going to be able to help with any of those challenges, or are those challenges still going to be the challenges regardless?
Well, the issue of fabricating materials, that remains a challenge until that piece of equipment comes up to be replaced. I can say when we're looking to replace things, we do try to not perpetuate that problem. We're not wanting things to be fabricated to be a special. We're trying to be more proactive around standardizing on things to simplify that process, both for spares in the future. But there's sometimes those problems they're not going to change until
Look at Hillsborough High School. It's a perfect example. Hillsborough High School, if you've ever been there, their mechanical room, their chillers, their air handlers are in their basement area at Hillsborough High School, where they built the school around the chillers, literally. So everything has to be fabricated there, or they've got to put the chiller together inside the building. So when Hillsborough goes down, we have to do temporary air because we're going to have to fabricate the product. It is a beautiful building. It's one of our most beautiful campuses we have. But that in turn comes the brick building that they built around air conditioning, which sounds crazy, but that's literally what they did. So some of that is going to be there. I will tell you, we also had the old thermostats. Thermostats are a big part of it. One of the things that Generate was able to do was actually connect our VinStar, which is the old thermostat, so that now we can actually see those. Because there was 50 to 60 schools when Kenny started 2 years ago that we couldn't even see what the temperature was unless we had someone out there looking at it. So it's a mix, to answer your question, Ms. Vaughn. It's both.
So I guess my question would be more if we would have a warning, since it's more of a diagnostic, to catch problems before they break down. Would this allow us to have more of a warning if a piece needs to be fabricated, as opposed to having to wait till that piece needs to be replaced to fix the air conditioning? Would the automation allow us to do more diagnostic to let us know a piece is potentially going to go out, so we can start the fabrication piece before it's actually broken and no longer operational?
Yeah, I can jump in there. This is Phil. Absolutely. That's part of the analytics we've run by connecting the systems, getting visibility into these systems, particularly whether they're being thermostats like the VentStars and portables or areas where we're not connected to building automation, or whether they, 200 about schools have building automation systems and the equipment connected in. We've run an analytics package on top of that allows us to track the performance of that equipment. Actually, you had mentioned, Ms. Combs, earlier around, is there a spreadsheet that we could have of when we have, we call them faults, but like when something doesn't perform like we want it to, and we've got an issue that crops up in that school. That's actually part of that same, the answer is the same for both of those questions. We have that data running 24/7 right now. And we have, I was looking at, as you were asking, I was pulling up the analytics on certain schools to look at, hey, how many issues and what types of issues are we seeing with the equipment? That same information is the information we use to trend over time that helps us predict when equipment can fail. Now, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell you perfectly on this day, the equipment's going to fail. But sure enough, we know at scale, when this equipment becomes at risk and when we should be replacing it ahead of time, or start to order the parts or fabricate equipment like the chillers at Hillsborough High, which are going to take a long lead time. We can absolutely now plan for those things. And before we really had no feedback mechanism for this equipment other than a phone call or somebody contacting Kenny by phone or Chris saying I'm uncomfortable, or one of you all, or that. So it's a kind of a new world we're entering into now in terms of information and access.
And from my understanding, it also builds an infrastructure as far as recording, almost like a trouble ticket system, where it builds that infrastructure all the way through, from reporting an issue to following up to when it's been fixed, capturing how many people that, go out, that it's really providing an additional infrastructure layer on being able to maintenance and respond to, the challenges within our air conditioning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We provide that support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for those issues and track those things. And we're getting into now tracking all of those repairs taking place as well. So, we can now start to trend and see if a piece of equipment is down or there's been a complaint call or a ticket been issued, how long until that time to close? With that ticket issued yesterday, is it an emergency? Is it a regular time? Should it be overtime? How long did it take us to complete that and resolve the issue? Track that over time, and then track that not just internally but externally with our vendor partners in the community. Sometimes we might get an invoice that says, hey, we went to the site and we were there for 12 hours worth of labor and, we replaced this piece of equipment. Now we have the capability to go, well, actually it shows that you were there for 4 hours, or you're there for 6 hours and maybe you were next door for 2 hours. And so now we're starting to get that and be able to really actually save quite a bit of money on that.
So, Mia, we're just about out of time. If you don't
have one last question.
Yes, Member Vaughn, if you don't mind, just make it a quick question because I have questions and we're out of time.
Okay, well, I'll try to make it quick, but I would like to ask my last question. The last question I had is, I know that we're concerned about some of the savings with TECO's rising cost. Is there ever a concern that the rising in TECO's cost could actually mitigate any of the savings that we're having?
As far as actual money spent, yes, but as far as the savings with our vendor and the partnership would generate, no. Actually, it will benefit the school district more to do that. But yes, with a 15% increase, which is what TECO is proposing right now, and we have a $30+ million TECO bill, that's a huge impact. And again, TECO's paid out of Part 1, so it's general fund dollars. So yes, it is a huge concern that TECO's rising costs are going to impact us negatively.
But it is a complex question that we can sit there and talk to you about. Like, if you don't do anything, your $30 million bill becomes, 45, et cetera. So we are trying to reduce the amount of exposure you have to that.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Whew. So I just have 3 questions. I had a lot more, but time is not on our side right now. So my first question, and this will be for Superintendent Davis and you all, and this is piggybacking from Member Combs. I believe we can do this, a school site savings, of energy savings reporting system. How much are we saving per school? We did this a little bit with Minimize, but I think there's a data check that we can do. Not trends necessarily, but actually this is exciting. It's a competition. We talked about that before. What school can save the most energy? And it really is a buy-in with the climate, studies, et cetera. But I want us to look at that. I also think, since we're using so many words of the savings, $5 million savings, et cetera, which we are, why don't we go ahead and also put, this is just a suggestion board and you can share with me other things, but if we talk about a suspended agenda, wouldn't it be kind of neat to absolutely share per month what savings for this district, size of Rhode Island, you all know this is a big one, what is the actual money we're saving? And that's a fiduciary, because we're all laser focused on sustaining savings and money in our budget. And I know Superintendent Davis will speak on this. I'm just going to go through one more because we're almost out of time. The last is, this is a tremendous public relations opportunity. And be it for global studies, climate change, electric cars, what we're doing with the savings with our children being taught, there is so much opportunity. I am hoping that Superintendent Davis will push with our communications department how we can utilize the greatness of your organization to our benefit to make students come to our schools because of what you are now doing now, but what you have planned in the future. So those are the 3 points. And Superintendent Davis, can you, and board members, I know I'll hear from you, but can you go ahead and recognize some of the things I just asked for or comment on?
Yes, Ma'am, to the chair. The biggest thing is we will be able to get some information for every school to be able to show the energy efficiency and what they're saving. You will see when you look at indirectly a competition that some units are more sophisticated than others, more newer than others. So there may be us putting them in tiers and buckets to where they are from an equipment perspective, but also maybe having some type of opportunity for them to kind of generate money back to their schools with them being cognizant of what's going on. As it relates to how we leverage Generate with their funding, we actually just had a pre-meeting about a little touch conversation about looking at workforce development, expanding that, and how they can be a player with that process. So I think that we're going to have another meeting on the books to figure out what we can do to offer additional pathways to our students and make it somewhat of a more attractive place to come and kind of build some of it a model. We already have another partner we're working with on that related to trying to obtain additional money from the federal government, but this, I think that Generate can come in and be exclusive to be able to help us with some different ways of work that we haven't exposed or offered in Hillsborough County.
Thank you for that. And last, my request would be not only for myself, but for the board members. The contract is a very complex one. It was dropped on Superintendent Davis' desk when he got in here, and it's a long one. But there are deliverables. And when you say that this is fixed, Steve, nothing's going to change, well, what I need to see, and I am sure board members agree, when we see the deliverables, will there be, say, 5 years from now, less deliverables? Fixed costs, but in other words, the devil's in the detail. So I would like a copy of what we should expect from Generate and those deliverables, and you can call it another word because I'm not I'm not an accountant, but you get my point.
I do, and I'll follow up directly with you, Member Gray, and we'll flesh that out a little bit more because we are out of time. But flesh that out a little bit more about how our reporting up can be consistent. But happy to provide reporting up to you guys through the administration on a monthly basis.
And I just want to say thank you very much, Steve. You're an educator. Kenny, you've been with us a long time. Is it Phil? Yeah. So much knowledge, a high knowledge level, and you've given us all a great education. Thank you, Mr. Farkas, for embracing, again, continuing education. And board members, I think without further ado, we're going to say adjourned.
In response to your adjournment, though, I do want to also thank you guys as a great partner. You guys have been a fantastic partner for us, and it's okay, Pablo.
He's been trained.
That's right. Get that guy's money. No, but team has been really a pleasure to work with, and you guys as well. So really, really a great pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.